you ready? Count 1, 2, 3, strut.
Hi, everyone. Rules as follows, same as always. We've got the wonderful Sean Pratt and Johnny Heller here today. If you have any questions, please, since everyone chats amongst themselves and since there's so many people on this meeting, I will not see them. So make sure to write question in big, big caps. And then I'll ask Johnny and Sean your question. So everyone, we have got Sean Pratt and Johnny Heller. For those of you that haven't heard of either of them, they are well known in the industry. They're charming, they're beloved amongst all, and they're not only successful narrators, but they're coaches. And I want to ask the most obvious question, and I'm sure this has been said on millions of other calls, but I've never heard the story. How did this great friendship begin? What was like the first moment your eyes met each other's across a crowded room kind of thing?
Oh, it was Fleet Week in Manhattan, and Sean was dressed as a sailor.
And Johnny was dressed as a Bowery floozy. So it was love at first. It was love at first 50. So that's,
you know what? To be honest with you, I have absolutely no recollection of how I met him.
I'm going back in the gray matter. That was way too many bourbons ago. I don't really remember how we actually ran into each. How did we do that? Was it at APAC or was it at where was it?
Must have been some sort of industry thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't.
Because God knows honestly, we wouldn't. God knows we would never, want to talk to each other outside of the industry.
No,
so
no, I don't. No, I don't really remember. I don't remember not knowing him.
Yeah,
we've been very close friends for years and years.
Because that's what's nice about it. You guys are obviously friends. I mean, we're all friends. We all love each other and meet each other and hug and kiss. Well, I don't hug or kiss, but we all love each other and meet each other. But you guys are like the kind of friends, like, oh, I've known him since I was 5 kind of thing. Like, are you like you're the kind of friends that would call each other if something was wrong and you would have a good old gap.
Oh yeah, I frequently call Sean with issues that are important to me, and he puts me on hold.
Private back channel text where we send inappropriate memes to each other all the time. So
by the way, let's be honest. Well. I don't know how to send a meme too well. So
I was going to say you want to be real careful with that these days.
I just say rude things, but yeah, we have we would be doing time in Leavenworth. Yeah.
Yes, in a much more close and intimate way.
Well,
I'm sure.
We travel. I think we met. I probably brought him in. I'm guessing to one of my splendiferous workshops early on, and I've had a lot of those. I assume.
Yeah.
And we hit it off, and then we started traveling together. We've been on the road together, like Hope and Crosby, on the road for many. Oh my God, years. Lots of different places, and this is the first year we didn't travel together. And
it was terrible.
Yeah,
it was really bad. The last place we did was Seattle, I think.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. It's great because, Johnny and I could not be more different personality-wise. We are truly and actually because we're so far apart personality-wise and temperament and experience, I think that's the reason why we get along so well, because we're constantly surprising each other at what we do and what we say. And I also think there's a great deal of respect there. At least Johnny has respect for me. I don't know the other way around, but
I don't know. I've been privy to both of your questions before the calls.
But it's right. I think Johnny invited me on one of his splendiferous workshops, and then we hit it off, and then the next thing we knew, we were traveling around. And then I think, just going back, I think that you and Scott did something right after that in Los Angeles, and you had me come out.
Yeah.
And this is years ago. And so anyway. But yeah,
that wasn't the birth of our joke telling thing, was it?
I think it might have been. Yeah.
Well, you've given me the perfect segue into the biggest question I thought of that I want to ask you guys. And I'm asking for a specific reason, because you're both completely different, and because you're both known by everyone as charming. I don't want to feed your egos here, but everyone likes you. You're charming. You're easy to get along with. People trust you. They enjoy your company, right? I have a question for you, and I'm interested as to how you handle it. But people pleasing and boundaries. I'm really curious about how the difference between how you two, and if you've always done this or if you've had to grow to know how to do this, how do you set boundaries with people, time, how, and do you do it but still remain friendly and everyone loves you? Because for instance, I found a nasty habit of mine. If I don't like a job someone does for me, I pay them anyway, tell them they were wonderful, and then hire someone else because I don't want them to like hate me. So I'm interested because I wouldn't mind being like you two. Nobody hates you, but you obviously haven't been around as long as you have by giving away all your time for free and not setting boundaries. And I'd love to hear your different takes on setting boundaries and if you've always been good at it or you had to learn how to do it.
Johnny?
Sean could be first.
Oh, okay. I correct my boundary. No, I learned a really valuable lesson once doing a show. This director was, oftentimes in the theater, you'll have a director who just chooses what they call a whipping boy, and that person can't even walk right. And that director takes all their frustrations and sarcastic comments out. And I was in a show where a director chose me as that person. And I just took it because I was a new member to this acting company and I wanted to stay on and be liked. And but it taught me a very valuable lesson that sometimes when you're young, or not even young, when you're learning, when you're the new guy, you're the newbie, sometimes people make you eat shit to teach you a lesson of being humble and paying attention. But sometimes people make you eat shit because it makes them feel better. And you learn over time to set those boundaries and say, no, that's not okay. But it's about tone. It's about how you can tell people no in a very polite way. And you can, or you come up, especially with Johnny and I dealing with so many people all the time. I think you develop certain sort of stock answers because you get the same kind of stock questions or stock scenarios over time, and you know how to deal with them.
You have certain replies for certain repeat.
Right. The person who wants to pick your brain for a cup of coffee kind of thing. I have a certain number of replies depending on the way they approach me about it, but they all have the same effect of, no, I don't do it for free. You need to pay me for my time. Or if it's a publisher that's being unreasonable or an author being unreasonable, I have certain things like, if you have an author who wants to somehow, they say, oh, I want to give you notes after every chapter or do, whatever. And my response is, okay, well, that's great. My rate for me doing it by myself is this. If you want to give me notes after every chapter, my rate's this. Ooh. And heck, you can even direct me live. My rate is this. And so you just pick. You just go ahead and pick and let me know what you think. And of course, that just sort of not. So yeah, so it was a learned behavior. I wasn't very good at when I started.
How long did it
for
take
me?
you to learn?
I'm not able to monetize my irritability like Sean is. If someone wants to. I've never been in a situation really where an author's wanted or offered to direct me, and I think I would just say no. You wrote it, I'm acting it. If you don't like it, don't hire me again. One of the things I like to believe in this business is success is measured by the second job for the same outfit. So I think as long as you're called back, you're doing fine. In terms of your initial question, though, I got the impression you were asking me how I deal with other people trying to encroach or take advantage of my time, because Sean and I are both, in spite of what others may think, we're basically friendly, decent people, but there has to be a
that but. How do you add the but in?
Well, see, for example, on this call, looking at some of these faces are some of my students and some of Sean's students, and I don't think any of them has ever crossed the line. And if someone does, I say, no, that's not. I said, look. What you're asking for is what I market. If you want free information, then let's work out some kind of barter thing. What do? Can you bake? Dick about it, but unless it's really arrogant and upfront, and unless they're in my face. But that rarely happens either. People in this industry, at least not initially, and at least not for a while. People just aren't assholes in this industry too much. So you really get it's a good group of people. So by and large, people understand. Matter of fact, there's a person I need to call, I don't want to mention names, after this, who contacted me on Facebook, a guy I know, he has a question, a specific question about a specific thing. He said, can you help me with this? I'm happy to pay you for your time. Now, I'm not going to charge him to talk on the phone for a little bit to tell him, because he was very decent the way he said it, the way he came about it. And he admitted the fact that, maybe I do charge this sort of thing. But I think also after a while, I can't be so protective of all the information that I will tell you what I like about audiobooks for $5. You've got to
yeah, I mean, there's a fine, and there is a line to it. I mean, you want to be generous.
If you want to coach with Sean, you got to pay Sean for coaching. You want to coach him, he pay me for coaching. But if you want to chat, like here's a chat group right now. If there's a question, I'll answer it. I mean, that's what we're here for. So I think that people, I don't find people, I will say that when I used to go on the road as an ambassador for audiobooks, like for recorded books, and I talked to huge library groups and all these people, you did get some real douche nozzle questions, and you had to handle it. And most, you put it off with humor by basically making fun of the person who asked the question in front of everybody, which I find very effective way to keep them at a distance.
But what I'm noticing is neither of you are coming from a place of people pleasing. You're respectful, but you're not, because I think I suspect I might be a people pleaser when I go out of my way to like kiss up to total like people I meet on the street.
You said you're paying someone for work that was poor.
I did.
I'm not certain. I don't think I would have done. I would have paid them for their time, but I would have told them what the problems were and why I would not use them again, nor recommend them.
And Johnny, to be also fair too, Johnny has to deal with a lot of crap, because oftentimes when Johnny and I go on the road, it's Johnny's producing it. Every so often I'll produce one and have Johnny come on mine. But when you're in the role of the producer, that's different than coach. As the producer, you have to be ready to kick people's ass if the hotel doesn't get the lunch in on time, or there's a problem with the room or whatever. And that's a different situation. But if you're just talking about within us as coaches or as colleagues with talking with other people, I'm much more, you're talking about, I've had people ask me, about, are you going to trademark your intellectual property, all the stuff you teach? I'm like, no. I said, what good is that? It's, an idea doesn't have any value in and of itself. It's in the execution of the idea that it gains value, right? And so, in fact, I was narrating a business book recently by this angel investor, and he said he makes a habit that if some entrepreneur approaches him and wants him to sign an NDA before they'll disclose their magic $1 million secret, he just walks away. He said, nobody has an idea that's original. Nobody, just tell me what you want and we'll figure it out. And so I'm very giving of my information and my time, but it also depends on the context. Like, this is a free kind of thing that we can talk and answer questions on. But if you want some nitty gritty stuff, then we need to set up a time. That's
and I would never call someone on a call. And it's funny you bring that up, because there's the old saying about creativity. There's no new ideas. Almost all art is taken from other art. It's the way you do it with respect. And that's very good. That's
Daniela, would you like us to stay on an hour after and just talk to you about how fucked up your life is?
well, only if you'd let me pay for it.
I was going to say, we'll send you the PayPal invoice now, so you can fill it out later. And
part of this whole thing is there is, like I said, there's good people in this world and in this industry. There really are. So there's benefit for Sean and I. We're decent people, and we like to surround them. I think that tends to, good people have good people with them. You know what I mean? We tend to attract like people, and they're good. There's intelligence, and there's a love of art and creativity and literature. And so there isn't a whole lot of, in my time, certainly I've had actors come in who are not willing to do anything I say. The worst thing for me is when someone does pay for my time and doesn't do anything I say. Like the actor you work with and say, listen, I like what you did there. I think I'd like it if you would try. Oh, I understand. Okay. Before you say anything, and then they're off. And that happens a lot. Actors who simply aren't willing to, they think a coaching session means just spending an hour with you, not really listening to you. And I have a difficulty with that. I don't brook that very well. And I'll say after a while, you need to shut up You know, if you want to pay me.
You actually
Yeah.
just reminded me of my second question.
Oh, cool.
You guys are like running the show here. I could just go to bed and let you.
Yeah.
I
Our middle
want to
name is
know.
Segway.
Well,
Yeah.
have you noticed, and I'm getting these from things that people ask me and things that people mention in groups, and I'm wondering if it's an age thing, and not in a bad, oh, people are old kind of thing, but you know, a lot of narrators, it's a second career. You've done something else, and you feel like you're coming into a new career. And I've noticed, and I noticed it in myself. I noticed it in myself. I think I've gotten quite good at getting over it. When you're just starting, it's a bit intimidating. And some people's reaction to that intimidation is to get defensive and closed off. Oh, do you know who I was? Or everything they say when they're asking a question, they have to say, because in my past life, I did, you know, and I used to do that a lot as well. Do you get that in your coaching, that it stops because of that? I'm not nobody. I do have experience that might not be as open. Maybe there is something to being really new and just going, yeah, I don't have a clue. I don't know anything. I'm an open blank slate.
I don't think that anyone needs to disregard everybody's past experience, but someone's success in e-learning or in being a juggler or a mime doesn't necessarily translate to success in audiobooks. And I think it's important that the person who's studying the audiobook acting or technique with us needs to understand that wherever we all have a past, we all have experience.
Yeah.
So wherever that comes from, I'm not belittling it. It just means that, you know, I don't really give a damn if you are good at mime, because it's not going to come up frequently in audiobook. So, you know, good for you. Hello. Here's Harpo.
So what do you, oh, the star of the show.
Okay, so there's also a mindset, Daniela.
Yeah.
There's a mindset that when you come to, you know, it's the student-teacher relationship.
Right.
And so, you know, I have students who are old enough to be my parents,
Right.
and I have students young enough to be my children. But the one thing that I think I send, you know, and the vibe I send out is like, okay, I'm in the position of being the teacher and you are the student. And we'll, you know, I tell people who come to me with a lot of experience in other kinds of EO, I'm like, my job is to take what you've got and fill in the gaps between that are missing so we can create something brand new. But the mindset is, you've come to me as to be a teacher. You know, that's my job. And you have to have the mindset of a student. So you soak it up. So every so often I'll get a little pushback on something, but now that I've been teaching one-on-one for, I don't know, 5-6 years, I'm much more adept of cutting it right off at the, you know, nipping it in the bud. But like, no, this is my dojo. You know, this is my place. This is the way it needs to be done. And, you know, I will politely but firmly stay on my students when they're not doing their job.
Do you think they understand that? Because what made me think of it was Andrea was on Tuesday. And when I met Andrea, she kind of politely suggested maybe pink wasn't the perfect branding for my website. I was like, she's saying I'm old.
I think you may have taken it wrong.
I was completely closed off. I wonder if that's something you have to just get over, or you guys can train someone. Look,
if you don't trust your coach, don't study with them. It's just that simple.
And
you know,
I think
go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Well, I think one of the important things too is, and I find it, because Sean and I watch each other coach, seen each other work. One of the important things, the single most important thing about coaching anyone in any art, is to find the way that they need to hear what you want to say. In other words, Sean and Johnny, and you need to find the way to reach out and talk to Harry. Is talking to Harry the same way as it is talking to Amanda Berry? Do I need to deal with this? Because they're different people. So I need to find out, like I work with Amanda. So when Amanda and I are together, I need to know, I want to say something to Amanda, and I know if I say it to Amanda this way, it will sink in and have some effect. Well, if I'm dealing with Lori Kane or Bob here I talked to earlier, I meant to say it differently or show it differently. And I think the key is to find the way that you need to interact with that individual so you can meet them on their level and share the information. And I saw James with a note that popped up about having rapport. Yeah, I think rapport is what I'm talking about.
Right.
And I think
there's I think that one of the reasons Johnny and I, when we do workshops, are so successful is that we talk about the same thing from two totally different angles. And we've discovered that if Johnny says something to a narrator who's in the hot seat doing their read, and it's not quite sinking in, if I say it, they might get it, or vice versa. So in a way, we have such different coaching styles, and we
the
come
different
out
types
the way
of learners,
right? And so
right.
the idea is that between the two of us being so different, the majority of the time, the person will understand it from one or both, one of us at least.
Okay, so Harry has a question for you guys, just to kind of clear up. So Andrea, and she had a good point, said that our other experience is valuable. We were talking about marketing profiles and websites and everything. And Harry says, but that has nothing to do with being open to knowing nothing in our coaching with Johnny and Sean, correct?
So can you say that again? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught.
Well, I think what he's saying is, because you know how we said, Andrea was talking about the importance of bringing who you are to your branding, right? Like I was a red-nosed clown. I did burlesque. That's all over the place. I brag about it to anyone that'll listen. Nobody cares, but I still brag. But part of the branding. But I think I might be answering your question for you. Sorry. But I think what Harry's asking is, if I go into a session with Johnny and Johnny said, I don't care if you being a red-nosed clown isn't relevant to what I'm teaching you. It's part of your branding, but you have to go.
Those are two different situations.
Yeah.
One is about a business that faces how your business faces the public, and the other is about a student-teacher moment where you're learning. So even so Harry's background is relevant to his understanding or his ability to understand what I'm trying to teach him, in that moment, it's about me teaching him a concept related to audiobooks. It has nothing to do with whether or not Harry was a lion tamer at one time or something like that. You see?
Yeah, and keeping your beginner's brain. Is that the term, beginner's brain? They say that you have to have when you approach anything, always willing to learn.
Yeah, because if you come to it with preconceived ideas. Yeah, But if you come to it with preconceived ideas, right? If you come to it with a preconceived idea, that means you're not listening. You're not open to learning something new.
Well, you could have a preconceived idea. You just have to be willing to understand that you may be, maybe totally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that a lot. I think the last 2 years, that's been the biggest learning curve for me.
But that's what learning is, though.
Yeah.
That's what learning is. We all have, I have some thoughts about brain surgery, but I don't really know how to do it yet. So when I actually learn to be a brain surgeon, I bet I'll change some of those thoughts I've got.
Right.
Okay, we have another question. I think it was Sarah. Says the new question, is it normal for a new narrator to never be happy with their performance? I'm trying to decide how long I should keep banging my head against the wall of perfectionism before packing it in. I don't want to base my decision on emotions. I'm approaching this purely as a pragmatist. Is this common among your students? I mean, I can say it's common among so many narrators, perfectionism, but I don't do it. What do you guys
Johnny,
think?
you want to jump in?
Sure. Okay, here's my thinking on that. The phrasing of the question, it comes from such a place of negativity, it's hard to know what to do. Yeah. First off, the idea of perfectionism. In whose eyes? And how do you judge whether it's been perfect or not? I mean, I've heard Sean narrate. Now, what if I think, I love Sean, I love his coaching, but I think he's a horrible narrator. Well, that's my opinion. But other people say, no, I don't really think that. But
you said, what if you think?
Well, yeah, well, what if but I don't. But the point is, look, there are tons of films and tons of actors and things are being done all the time that some people say, this is unbelievable. And I say, you're right, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievably bad. So I can't. So the perception you have, if you, the actor, think that you, the actor, suck at acting, that's a problem. And that's something you need to work with, either coaching or not. If everybody who you want to hire you thinks you suck, that's a different problem. How do you judge perfectionism in an art form you're not even certain of? If I want to do origami and all I end up is just a crumpled piece of paper, I think I've done a poor job. It doesn't mean I can't, in time, learn how to make a little swan.
Right.
But what they do
I've never
is,
used origami before in a reference.
but Johnny, sorry to interrupt, but what they do, when I hear perfectionism, so many people I've talked to lately, I've found just doing a simple ACX audition, they spend 4 hours and then they go back. I did ACX auditions as my warm up and then forgot I did it. And then, so I never had any angst, but people that they want everything perfect. They're afraid to put anything out there that's not perfect.
Okay. So first of all, perfection is an illusion. And the problem, maybe it's because Johnny and I come from a live performance background, like theater and stand up and things. You know, when the curtain went up, the show's on, that's it. There's no going back until the next night. And so you learn from the performance. You might practice before the next show, but once the curtain comes up, that's it. The problem that I deal with, is a lot of my students have this problem, is that because of the technology, because of punch and roll, and that you can do that, you go down this dark rabbit hole of, I'll just give it one more take. I'll give it one more take. I had a gentleman who came to me several years ago, and when I met him, I said, well, what are you working on right now? And I was doing the consultation with him. He said, well, I'm doing a biography of Plato. I said, well, how long is it? He said, six hours. I said, oh, great. So you know, how long have you been working on it? 3 months. Hello. And so I told him, I said, you can't work with me unless you finish the book, but I could do it so much better. I said, the problem that new people have, here's the deal. There's that famous Ira Glass quote about the gap between where you start and where you think you want to be. If you haven't heard of the Ira Glass quote, just look up Ira Glass and then the gap, or the artistic gap. That sums what the dilemma is. Every day you keep practicing, you're going to get better, especially as a new person. You're going to make big leaps. And yeah, you're going to go back and listen to your first book a year from now, and it's going to suck. Why? Because you were so much better than you were. But you can't keep doing the same book again. You actually get better by giving yourself a hard deadline and going through the work and getting it out the door, and knowing full well that a year from now, yes, you could have done the book better, right? That's a given. And that's a hard thing for someone who doesn't come from a performance background to understand.
Because it's like being in a play. The success isn't the book in your portfolio. The success is who you are right now.
One of the best quotes I ever heard, I used to model for a painter in New York City, and she said, one of the keys to learning to be a great painter, one of the keys, shush, we'll go to that some other time. One of the keys of being a great painter, she said, is knowing when to stop painting. Yeah. When the paint, you're like, I'm done.
In your case, when you run out of red. Yeah.
That's right.
That'll worry
That's
you.
the truth.
He was a butt model, famous butt model.
Famous.
You can't throw something out there like that.
Well, now everyone's on internet doing this, so you'll find out soon enough. Someone will do a search.
It's called the Pratt Ass Collection. It's very big.
That's right.
But it's the performance, right? The best part about any play is the rehearsals. I mean, and also that minute before you go on stage, and also the minute when you bow. But the thing about it is it's like who you're becoming the character every rehearsal. So by the end of the month or the 2 weeks that you're rehearsing, you're like, you've grown, and so it's the process. And another thing people keep saying is, what if I get this book and it's a mistake? What if somebody what if somebody else is on? Didn't do so many books, nobody will ever see that book. That's my
but that's a hard piece of advice to give, because for that person starting out, it's their first or second or third book, and they've loaded it up with so much emotional. It's like when you go to audition after audition for a play in New York City, and you can't get arrested. Each audition gets a little more loaded up emotionally for you, and so you really want it. And so even though it might be a book on how to plant a flower garden, it's their book, and they got it, and so it is loaded up emotionally. And
it becomes a moratorium on who they are.
Right, and it's not a moratorium. It's just another job to learn from. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jen,
I think you need to trust who you are at any given moment. And at that given moment, that's who you are. Yeah. Can you be better, different? Yeah, sure. Here's who you are now. I promise you, if I could go back and redo my first 50, 100 books, I'd do them better.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. But this idea of perfection, here's what we have. We have a script. And then we have all this equipment and crap. Assuming all the equipment works right, all we have is us. That's it. So what's perfection about that? if I find a moment in that scene, a moment that I'm connected, if in doing the performance, I'm connected to the author's truth, that's as close as perfection as we're ever going to come in this industry. It is not a play, and it's not stand-up. I don't get the applause. You know, I've done those. I've done live theater. I've done stand-up. I've done improv. The live applause is how I know I'm connecting. When I say something funny and the laughter comes, I know I hit the mark. In the middle of a script, a creative art that I'm trying to get in touch with and play the moment and be there, fiction or nonfiction, I'm perfect if I'm not thinking of anything but what's happening. And even then, I might be able to do better if I know a little more. And I think every time I work with somebody else, I learn a little more about what I need to do. This is an ever-changing, ever-growing art. When are you ever, I don't think I'm ever going to be perfect. I'm just going to try and be better all the time, or as good as I can be at that moment. Stop putting that ridiculous pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
If this was easy, everybody would be doing it. It isn't.
But
give yourself the break.
And the other thing too, I mean, I have students who struggle with this, and they've got 40, 50, 60, 100 books under their belt, and they still have this issue. And when my response is, shitty narrators don't get to do 100 books. You know, after a while, your own work history itself is the validation that you need to look to. Now, yes, every so often you're going to get a book that's a real challenge for whatever reasons, whether it's poorly written or poorly edited, or you're not really connecting with the material, or whatever. It's and so you rise to the challenge. Ironically, I always say that it takes, you know, we used to say in the theater that it takes just as much effort to produce a bad play as a great play. You know, you go into rehearsal every day, you work hard, and this play still falls apart. When I was doing, say, like 50 books a year, at one end, there would be like 10 books of the 50 that I could not wait to get back in the studio and narrate. In fact, when I finished them, I was depressed because they were such great pieces of writing. And then there was a gap, and there was like this middle 30 that were great books, you know, ranging from okay to pretty good. And that's where I kept my tools sharp. And then at the far end, we have really 10 shitty books I would do a year. The irony is it takes just as much skill to do a great book as it does a shitty book. Because if it's terrible, you have to pull out every tool in your toolbox to make it entertaining for the listener. And if it's great, you want to pull every tool out because you want to rise to the occasion of the writing. So, you know, if you look at it from that way, just as a challenge, you're going to get better in the sense that you're working the tools.
I mean, your bad decisions you can learn as much from as your good decisions. Yes. I mean, I've got some bad decisions from being a person that jumps in. I can brag about, oh yeah, I'm not a person, but jumping in has a downside. I've got some, but every single one of them, I really learn. You learn from your mistakes. You can't be afraid to screw up.
What's really wonderful was when you have that moment as a narrator. I still remember I'd been narrating for probably a solid year, maybe a little more. And I was doing a piece of nonfiction, and I had this moment happen, like with a musician reading music, when I realized I was reading slightly ahead of myself, and I was reacting to the text. And it's something I teach now, but the first time that happened, it threw me out of it. It was such a transcendental experience, but I realized I was thinking faster and reading faster and getting ahead of the text. And that took a year of narrating almost every day to get to that little breakthrough moment. And it was so worth it. Now, the book I was doing, I don't even remember what the book was. I just remember the moment of having that breakthrough. And so the thing is about this notion of perfectionism, which is ridiculous, but the idea is that if you're always pushing yourself just a little bit to be a little bit better, you're going to have a moment where suddenly the dam breaks and you make that transition to that next level. And that's why you keep, you know, no matter what the quality of the text is, that's when the breakthrough comes. And that's the payoff for that kind of effort.
Because you're the piece of art, not the book. You're the art.
May I answer a question I saw in the chat room?
Is this the Marley question? You could say, yes, please,
yes,
Johnny.
What is the Marley? I didn't see it.
Do you want me to read it out loud?
Yeah, please, yeah.
How do you prep for your books? I'm afraid to prep too much, like underlining words I want to emphasize, and wind up taking myself out of the moment when I get in the studio, or when I get out of the studio, or miss a better interpretation because I'd already decided how I was going to say that line. So aside from researching pronunciation and which character has which accent, what else should we be doing?
If I may, I find one of the issues that comes up all the time is what I don't know if it's over prep, but it's ridiculous prep. I've seen people who mark, let's say it's a fiction book with 100 different characters. And so you take your eye annotate and you color in each person's color, and Sean's in aquamarine and Stacy's in blue and someone else is in magenta and someone else is kind of a purple. Like, what are you doing? What are the colors? Now it looks like you have an evangelical's Bible, and it doesn't mean anything to you. It's pretty, but it means nothing. You know, if the line says, "You go right to hell," Sean said. That little attribution, Sean said, will let you know that Sean said it. So you don't have to underline Sean in green and Johnny in red, because he tells you. Also, you're playing the scene. You're in the scene. You're in the moment. So you know who's saying what, and you know what attitude's happening because you're playing it. Relax. That's what you do. This is the good stuff. That's the good stuff. Just play it. Don't over prep. Don't over prep your acting. In a play, every night you're doing the same show, but you're having those emotional paths to lead to the big moment. In a book, it's kind of the same way. You've got to play everything along. I suggest for prepping, here's how I began. If it's fiction, I wrote down every character in the book and what my perception of the character was, my first impression, which I could change later. I would write something as broad as a snooty New England lawyer, or I'd write specifically, I think this is Sean Pratt, meaning I don't have to do an impersonation of Sean Pratt.
Yeah.
But if I say this is a Sean Pratt, this is an Anna Clement kind of, I sense that Anna Clement, if I was casting this, I'd cast, and I try to cast the book from my frame of reference, whether it's Anna or Sean, or whether it's Charles Lawton from Mutiny on the Bounty, whoever I think plays the role, and I put it in. If I'm wrong, I can make changes. The other thing I like to do for prep is how to pronounce words that I don't know. And that's what there are libraries for, yada, yada, yada. But you have to understand the characters. When you're doing a play, if you're a Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman, the only character and the only life story you concern yourself with is Willie Loman's. But if you're doing Death of a Salesman, then you got to know Willie Loman and Linda Loman and Biff and Happy and everybody. That's what we are doing as audiobook narrators. Your prep has to be enough that you know what's about to happen next. So that when something happens, you, the narrator, go, holy shit, I didn't think that was going to happen. That can't happen. You've got to know what's going on. You have to read. That's why you read the book first. If it's a book about Sean's in a book in the brain right now, if he can't say the parts of the brain because he doesn't know how to pronounce them, that will be a problem, right? I've done tons and tons of science and medical books, and I don't know how to say any of those words, but I have to look them up and be able to say them trippingly off the tongue as though I say them regularly. I know how to say them, and then I forget because I don't care anymore because I'm done with the book. This preparation stuff and this perfection stuff, just read the goddamn book. Share the story. It's as simple as that. Everything you're doing adds on these layers of difficulty, and you instead of walking up a hill, you're climbing Mount Everest. Just tell the story. The whole point is, I promise every single one of you is a storyteller. That's why you like doing this. Mm-hmm. Stop pretending you're not. Enjoy what you're doing.
So,
I don't know how to...
So when I teach the prep and I talk about it with them, I'm giving them tools that they've never used before. So I teach them how to score text. I do a concept I call paragraph colors. So if you look in nonfiction, if you look carefully enough, the author will tell you literally paragraph by paragraph how they feel about the topic they're discussing. And I tell them, I'm like, these are all just tools, okay? And you need to learn how to use the tool. I was a carpenter for a long time. That's why I use this reference. But you have to learn how to use the tool properly. But I'm like, you don't use all the tools for every single book. You just use them as needed. So like when I was narrating Infinite Jest, I had to score the entire book because the writing was so difficult. I had to prep it that far in advance, and I had to make decisions because otherwise I'd get lost in the text. So that's an extreme example, but it was helpful to use that tool then. And so, you know, I teach my thing about the 4 voices of nonfiction. I'm like, if you practice it enough, eventually you don't even have to think about it. It becomes secondary. The problem that a lot of new narrators have when it comes to prep is, use a theater analogy again. When you're learning how to do the sword fight, it's really clunky at first. It's rote memorization and it's awkward and you're going to make wrong moves, but you do it enough and it gets in your body. And if you do a lot of sword fight scenes and a lot of plays, eventually it becomes something that you have a lot of alacrity with.
And that was you when you said that you were reading the sentence ahead. You had perfected your sword fight.
Right.
And it went organic.
For that particular tool.
Yeah.
You see? So when it comes to prep, when you're learning prep from a coach, whether it's Johnny or me or whomever, it's going to feel awkward at first, but if you apply it enough, then it becomes something that's reflexive. It's secondary, you know, no different than learning to say, play the piano, to look at the note and know which key that is in the moment. It feels clunky at first, but you do it enough. And so the amount of prep, I mean, you know, I teach my students a system where they can prep a nonfiction book without having to read the entire thing. Because usually when you get a large nonfiction that's 10, 15, 20, 25 hours long, the notion of trying to read the entire book before you do it and meet your deadline can be very difficult. Now, fiction, you should always read, always. And if you have the time, yes, you should read every book before you do it. But you know, over time, you can learn some shortcuts to help you get to the heart of the story and what the author's intent is. And then you learn how to notate that for yourself. But you know, yeah, you can go easily overboard. I've seen scripts like what Johnny was saying with multiple colors and pictures and Pinterest ideas and stuff. And that can become very distracting if you're not careful. So that's...
You know what I learned? I think I got it partly kind of, it was weird. It was from something Sean taught me. And then something I heard Johnny say in an interview where he recorded voices on his phone.
Mm-hmm. Johnny does that.
You great. Had me do an exercise where you do the TED Talk. And those two things together, I remember the day I started and it was like, changed the way I do it forever. Now, every time I go in to record, you know, I've obviously read the manuscript, then I do a brief recording of each character introducing themselves to each other in their own voice, and kind of like just a quick, this is what my problem in the book is, or this is what my issue is.
Right.
And then I use that, like Johnny said in his interview, when I have to go back, and it's on my phone, so I can just hit the clip of each character. And it's been life-saving because I tried to follow all the rules in the prep, and I did do what you said and learn it as much as I could. But what I found was the more I worried and marked things up, the more nutcase I was in the booth. I started like going, what? Now I just kind of, what Johnny said, do the basic.
You know, there's a trick. Oh, go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead.
I'm by no means suggesting shortcuts to cut out work or anything. I'm only saying that we frequently, and by we, I mean you guys, load up so much crap on your plate that you forget what you're there for.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
You're doing so many of these other things to try and make the job easier. You're not doing the job, which is to tell the story. And I just think we tend to lose track of that when we add all these things. Well, I need to have everything just so, and Sean says, I got to write this number down and break. Yeah, I'm saying whatever he says. Everything Sean tells you and I tell you, or any coach tells you, has value if it helps you do the job, which is to tell the story.
So a little trick. Go ahead,
Sean.
I'm sorry. A little trick that you might want to consider, everybody, when it comes to not only necessarily character voices in fiction, but also getting the tone the author takes in nonfiction. So let's say you're doing a piece of fiction and you start it and the character voices aren't quite settled, right? You haven't quite got that South African accent or that old crotchety old man who lives over. Go ahead and start the book, because those voices will settle, by chapter 4 or 5 or whatever, and do the entire book. And then when you're done, immediately go back and re-record the opening again. And I do that sometimes in nonfiction. If I feel like if I start the piece and it's not until I get back, in chapter 2 or 3 that I finally settle into the author's voice, then I know, even though I'm a little shaky on the tone, I know it'll fall into place eventually. And so when I finish the book, I immediately go back and redo those opening tracks, and it's solid then. So it just does a trick as far as prep and work, is that don't, and this is where you can go down that rabbit hole of redoing the first chapter a bunch of times. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Then just go back and drop in those voices or whatever you need to do. And if you know you've got that sort of in your back pocket, it gives you more confidence to keep pressing forward.
I remember that from your coaching too. I think I was a better student than I thought I was, Sean. I have some questions. Rebecca would like to know, I've lost it. There are so many coaches available. How does one decide which coach is best? So you can tell I'm a narrator. Available. How does one decide which coach is best suited to what they need? Also, what do Johnny and Sean each feel about their coaching strengths? And let's put a twist on this. What does Sean feel about Johnny's coaching strengths? And what does Johnny feel about Sean's coaching strengths? That could be more interesting.
I feel like we're in the dating game now all of a sudden.
I know, isn't it fun?
The top 5 things I find annoying about you, right? Well, I think that any coach named John or Shawnee, right? Shawnee or John, Sean or Johnny, would be a good one to choose. Yeah, you need to take time to, I always say, if you're going to want to coach with somebody, if you're going to spend that time and money, they should be at least amenable for setting up some kind of consultation to let you know what it's going to be like. If you're going to spend that much time with them. I mean, I do a free consultation with everybody who comes, who's interested in working with me, because I want to lay eyes on them too. Because every once in a while I might meet somebody and I'm like, I'm not sure this is going to be a good fit, but at least I can reassure them this is my style.
Has that ever happened?
What, where I said no to someone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not very often, but I just get the feel.
Yeah.
You know, ironically, I'll tell you one specific area where it can be a deal breaker for me is when I discuss, the business track of what I teach. I say, about this use of social media to promote your career. And some people, you can just see the hair on the back of their neck stand up like, oh my God, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to narrate. I'm like, look, I'm sorry. Unless you have a personal assistant who'll do it for you, you come here to work with me, this is going to happen. And if they show a lot of resistance to that, I'm like, I don't know what else to say. If you come here to work with me, there are things I'm going to do that I know work. Just like Johnny has certain things he knows will work when he tells the actor to shut up and let me try to teach you.
That's what I do in every time.
You do know, Johnny, after that coaching session I had with you, I booked 3 jobs that day.
I did not know that. Nice to hear.
Just after the one coaching session. So you are a miracle worker.
There you go. That's what Sean was trying to say.
That's right.
Although you notice how Sean effortlessly blew off saying anything about my work.
Oh yeah, well, Sean, we're not going to let you off the hook. Sean, what do you feel Johnny's strengths are as a coach?
Yeah, Sean.
Having seen Johnny work, live, as it were, what I like about Johnny is that he gets very, I use the word intimate when he's working with someone. He gets right down literally on their level to talk to them. And he's trying to do what he's actually been doing for the last 15 minutes is like, take the pressure off yourself. Take the pressure off yourself, right? And there's something about his demeanor that allows people to relax enough to get out of their own damn way. That's one of the best things that Johnny does when he's coaching live with people. I've never seen him do it on a Zoom call or something. I've only seen it, when we're in the room. It's that ability of his to get right down on their level and say just the right little note, but he's putting them at ease. And that's one of the best things I see about of Johnny's technique that I try to emulate too.
Well, the last thing he said was, you have everything you need. And I have to repeat that because I'm a crazy person. And I repeat that to myself all the time. And you need to hear it. So you're right. He knows what you need to hear to take in the rest of the feedback. You have everything you need, but could you fix these 89 other things? Just kidding. I'm kidding. So I love that. That was lovely. Thank you, Sean. Johnny.
I don't think Sean's very good at all. It's an interesting difference. When we work together on the road, Sean does basically nonfiction and I do fiction. which interesting that we've both done tons of I've done tons of nonfiction, he's done tons of fiction, so we could switch it up. The difference in our styles, and what I find interesting about Sean is Sean has like a lesson plan, and everything's arranged. Like this week or in this thing, we are going to work on these things, and here are the 5 ways to handle this issue, which I call this. And here are the 17 ways, and he has everything written down. It's the way ahead. There's nothing he hasn't encountered, and there's nothing he doesn't have a lesson plan for. I'm much more, which is great. I can't do that. My mind doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. I'm much more mercurial and quixotic, and I just like to work with what's in front of me and deal with the issues that are presented. Well, Sean has, listen, here's the methodology. I'm very successful, and if you want to be successful, here's how to do it. And it's almost like a Tony, what's his name? Robbins kind of deal with, look, not in a bad sense, but in the modeling sense.
Yeah, much more charming.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? But Sean's saying, look, these are the steps to take, and he's willing to share the steps, and he makes them very clear. Here's the issue. I find it fascinating. It's nothing that I could never do that. Never. It isn't in my tool
It's interesting when we teach together, like on the fiction day. And so Johnny takes the lead on the fiction day and I take the lead on the nonfiction day. But we still interact with, in other words, when he's doing fiction, he'll look up at me and like, you got anything? And I'm like, I might jump in with something else. But I also think, this gets back to our personalities. I'm a very technical actor. I'm an outside in actor as opposed to an inside out. I would say that Johnny's inside out. He has all this emotion that he filters this way. I'm much more, hit your mark here, put the glass down there. Here's the 5 steps for this. And then if I have a framework to work in as a performer, I can fill in the rest after the fact. And Johnny's just the opposite. And that's where I think our strength when we work together comes through, because I might have the 5 steps of this, and the person sitting in the seat might go, okay, I understand that intellectually, but Johnny comes in and gives it an emotional attachment that they can bring both of those things together. And that's why I think when we work together, it's such a good team.
But do you know what you both do?
We complement each other.
But also, you're on a free call right now. And maybe I shouldn't keep reminding you guys of that.
Yeah,
but,
whoa.
The thing you're both we'll talk boundaries later. But the thing you're both doing that I think is rare in a coach, and I think it goes to what Rebecca's original question: how does one decide which coach is best suited? And I think it's why you two are popular as coaches. You take your complete focus. I mean, I don't know, maybe you're just really good actors, but you seem to take your complete focus and attention, and you're like trying to this is what I've done. This is everything I've learned in 80 years, and I'm trying to give this to you. Do you understand? And you're trying to figure out the best way to implant it in their brains. And you can feel that in every interaction with both of you. You have your different styles, as you said, outside in, inside out, but the effort and the focus is completely, I'm sharing what I've worked so hard for with you. And that, I think, is that's worth gold. Because when you go to a coach and they're just like, I need to make some extra money, here's my online class.
Yeah, Johnny and I could probably spend a few minutes talking about coaches you might want to stay away from, not specific people, but what to look for. If the coach that you're working with spends the majority of their time, gossiping or not teaching you anything or not moving through the curriculum, that's not a good coach. I mean, they're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Or if you have someone, unfortunately, you might run into somebody who's only done 5 or 10 audiobooks and they throw their shingle at as being a coach. And you need, that's where it's on you to do your due diligence and find out how much experience does that person actually have. Johnny, what do you think?
I don't know if I can add to what you just said without throwing out names, so I'm not going to.
I know.
But I think, yeah.
You Sesame Street characters or something. I don't know.
Well, I think there's enough information out about most coaches that you can find out enough. And if you ask somebody, what was it like working with Sean? Sean does this 12-month lesson. It's a year. It's a commitment. You can work with me once or 30 times, depending on what you want. And different coaches have different styles. And you see if someone worked with me and didn't like it, we didn't get along or anything, I've given back the money. I've said to someone, maybe I'm the wrong guy for you. Let me give you some, and I would try to suggest someone they might work with better than I. If it didn't click, some people I just, I don't like everybody. And so if I don't like them, I definitely try and send them somewhere else. Because I don't want, to be honest, I don't want to spend an hour with so-and-so. So now I have to be honest about that. I don't say, you have a horrible personality, so I'd rather not do this. I say other things. That I have a horrible personality, maybe you should meet with someone else. Something, I twisted it around. But, you've got to, there has to be some kind of relationship thing happening and a desire. And I think if the coach spends all their time yammering about shit, then maybe they're not the right person for you.
Well, there's a fine line between checking in with somebody, right? To say, how you doing right now? What are you working on? Is everything okay? As opposed to, gossiping or going off on wild tangents and not getting to the lesson. I mean, the clock is ticking. I always, sometimes to them, I'm always telling my students, record every session, because if you're trying to take notes, you're going to get left behind. Because a lot of stuff just rolls out of off my tongue that in the moment that's just for them. And if they don't have a video recording of it, they're going to miss something. And, but if in the hour that I spend with them, the majority is it's them. It's not me just going off on tangents. That's one thing. But also, if you feel like the coach is not answering your question, or you feel you come out of the session no more enlightened, or you feel like the answer they gave you, they could have given to anybody with any piece of material, that may be a clue.
Yeah.
And also, frankly, in this age of social media and direct messaging, there's no excuse for you not to do your due diligence, to reach out back channel and say, what's it like to work with this coach? Please DM me.
Okay, so that brings up...
You'll find if you study, you'll find that I'm currently kicked off Twitter for
Well, but you guys, this comes up to the next question, which I don't want to miss out on. Somebody from the UK, except if I scroll, I'll lose her. Johnny and Sean workshops. Are there any Johnny and Sean workshops in Denver? And oh, I've lost it. Okay, basically, they want a Johnny and Sean workshop. They live in the UK. COVID's going on, and they think that the two of you on an online workshop would be manna from God or heaven or whatever.
Yeah, I'll tell you a couple things going on and some things that we're talking about. Coming up fairly soon, I'm going to do a romance narrator with the publisher webinar with Andy Arndt and James Patrick Cronin, a few others coming up. Probably, I want to try to do it Valentine's week because I thought it'd be nice. And then the Scott Pratt Johnny Heller audio business workshop will be in March, the day before the Audies, as it's always been. That'll be online. So I don't have the details yet. Sean and I were talking just this week, I think, about trying to do some of our workshops. My Splendiferous workshop will come up in May. Is it May? I do it in May. Sean will be at that. So that's one thing come up. And that'll be available in any time zone. If we do something specifically in the UK, I think we have to amend the time zone and promote it in the UK. And we can certainly talk about that.
Yeah, or you could just do it like this time. If you do it this time, it's only 9 o'clock. What time is it there? Okay, 9 o'clock, 9 to 10.
Oh, that's fine. We can do that.
9 to 10. And I'll promote it over here for you guys.
So the answer is yes. Sure, we can.
Yeah. I'll do videos.
Yeah, right now, of course, they're not going to be live. None of them will be live because of COVID. That's just a given. So hopefully by 2022, we can see each other, because it's like APAC. It's like, yes, I know APAC has to be online and we all want to go. But, it's that thing about when you actually are in the space with other people, it's that chance conversation at the water fountain that gets you the book or the intro to something. It's those kinds of moments you cannot manufacture on Zoom. They're much more difficult. So while Zoom or Skype, these kinds of online things have a great deal of value and they keep the costs low for everybody and people can watch them later or whatever, it's missing that crucial element. And that cannot be discounted as far as moving your career forward. right?
Yeah, like,
it's that extra drink you have over in the corner with so-and-so from
that
from
New
Random
England
House.
Narrator Workshop every October
Exactly.
has that.
Yes, I was just about to say, Johnny does this great New England thing, and it's a wonderful chance, and that's exactly it. You're with, you suddenly have an opportunity to do that kind of networking, which does not happen online. So my hope and Johnny's hope is that by 2022, we're going to be going back and doing stuff live, which, we both enjoy, because it also frankly gives us a chance to get the hell out of town and go hang out in Chicago or Denver or Seattle.
I'm looking at a West Coast wine narrator escape on the West Coast at a vineyard.
Yeah, it'll make the reader's circle
2022.
that evening much more different.
I think at this point, everyone's ready for wine. After COVID, I think the wine industry is probably doing quite well. Melissa!
Hi.
Hi, MB.
Hi. Yeah, I did have a question, but it scrolled way up there.
I know. See, my eyes, I'm like, they're too popular. There's too many people on the call.
So my question was, do either of you do director type coaching for, say, a specific book? Like, say I have a book and I'm not sure about my acting choices for it. Do you do that kind of just short-term coaching?
If you're asking, I can speak for myself, would I be willing to direct you in a book, or at least the first couple of chapters to get you going? Yes, I do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Same here. Same here. I just had go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. So you take trade stuff for that? No, I'm kidding.
Were you talking about the whole book, or just like a few?
No. Just what Johnny said.
Like just a director reading kind of thing.
Just contact either one of us. We'll work something out. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We love you. Whatever you want.
And you do demos, don't you, Johnny? You do audiobook demos, don't you? Now, how does that work? People pay for because I know in voiceover we paid for audio demos, but don't audiobooks change like so often?
Yes. It depends. If it's your first, it really depends on what you need, what you want, what you have. A lot of people have demos up and they never change them, and they don't represent who they are at any given moment, or they represent who they are at a moment long ago, and they should be up to date. If you go through Edge Studio, they have a track, and I work at Edge. If you just go to my website, it's a little bit different because I do commercial demos too, but those are fully produced things, and you can't really do them because I can't get into a studio. An audiobook demo doesn't need the same production. So it really depends. I have to amend my website because it really depends on what you ask me to do. To help find the pieces, direct the pieces, put the pieces together. That's basic, and we just come up with a reasonable price, not what it says on the website, because it's not the same anymore. The difference is if I don't do it with a partner of mine who is no longer doing it, I've got to find someone new. I don't know how to edit and master that crap. So a lot of times I don't know how to do any of that stuff, nor do I ever plan on learning. So if the actor doesn't do it themselves, then we have to hire someone just to master it. But we're talking about, 5 pieces of 4 minutes long, so it's not a big thing. But yeah, I direct, help you find it, and I have to amend my website for that.
Yes, definitely. Can I just say definitely amend your website?
Well, it's a pricing I have to amend because I don't, it's not a full package anymore. Because
I know, and if you mention that though, because if I had seen that when I booked you on coaching, I would have booked that in a second at the time.
Well, I'll assume it's actually after dinner. I'll get right on.
Yes, please. We'll have Andrea give you a talk about websites and updating. Do you? For a specific, okay, I found your question, Melissa. Question. Kat wants to know, is it very common for your RH to be so involved with your narration? Mine has been a director as well. It's actually been great because she wants the narration to be serious in tone, and I haven't narrated that way before.
I don't hear a question.
Yeah, I don't hear a question.
I think the question is...
Kat, are you just trying to brag that you have a book going on? Is that what this is?
I think she's asking, is the rights holder supposed to micromanage?
Get so involved, exactly. Just to really get involved in... It's not uncommon, right?
Wait.
No, it is
the opposite. It is uncommon.
They tell you specifically what you want for your 15-minute sample, and I have a welcome pack that says, if you're not 100% happy with me, Before you approve the sample, we need to talk, because once you approve the sample, you're not going to see me again until you get the book. I will.
And she has.
Yeah.
And she has been in contact with me, so
no.
It's actually been good.
Well, if it's been good, that's a great experience for you. It's not
Yes.
one that is mirrored very often in the industry.
Okay.
And it could go wrong. If you let the habit, it could go wrong.
It could be a big bag of wrong in a big hurry. So the thing to keep in mind is that even though you might have a good interaction with that particular rights holder, you're also dealing with the next one might want that same level of control, but they may not know how to talk, they may not know how to talk to you as a narrator to direct you. It's like, their notes might come back and go, well, just do it better. You're like, well, what the hell does that mean? And so,
can you make him sound more albino?
Yeah, exactly. Taller. He needs to sound taller. But in the long run, you don't want that kind of the rights holder to have that interaction unless they are willing to pay for it. Like I said at the very beginning, I have 3 different rates if they approach me like that. There's my rate when I work by myself, if they want to give me notes, and if they want to direct me. Because it's a term I learned in construction. We call it the fuck with factor. The more you want me to fuck with this thing that you want done in a certain way, the more money it costs. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
So
the more help you give, the more expensive I am.
But Sean, but the way Sean's approaching it, if you think of it this way, the way Sean approaches that with the different tiers of pricing is the way a professional approaches it. This is, you hire somebody to come do something in your house. This is my service and this is the price. The problem, and take it from somebody that got this wrong many, many, many times, is you become friends, you get along, and they have a certain sound in their head, and it might not be, and they get too involved and they get worried. You're supposed to set them at ease. You're the professional doing the job, and you need to make them feel in the beginning that they can trust you and leave it with you. You've got this and you'll be fine. Because if you don't do that, then they're going to feel they need to, it's good for both of you if you just do the job and leave them to it, unless you're good friends with the writer and you have a relationship. I have one writer that I will upload, but I know she's
okay.
I think the reason also, this was a hard learned lesson I acquired when I was doing commercial VO, or you go in to do like an e-learning gig in the studio with the client, right? And the client might be a government. I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for many years. So you might go in the studio and there's the producer and the sound engineer and the client and the writer, but the client starts directing you and they have no experience about how to tell you what to say or how to say it. They just don't have they don't have the nomenclature to explain it. All they know is the next thing you know, they want you to hit every single word in the thing, because that's an important word too. And of course, what I say is, if everything sounds important, nothing is important. And so I learned the hard way that just because they wrote it does not mean they know how to perform it.
Right.
Be careful. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. Just be careful.
Okay. Thank you.
Have I missed any questions? And congratulations on the book, Kat. Question. Okay, that was you. I think we're good, you guys. I think we're good. Sean and Johnny, do you have any, please, any last words for posterity, a la Sean Pratt taught me to do this, and I think it's become a cup of joe thing now, for all the YouTube listeners to listen to 50, 80, 90 years from now? What would you like to leave them with? Johnny?
Oh, yeah, let Johnny go first.
No, Sean's ready.
Sorry, Sean.
Sean said he goes.
Sean?
Yes. Everybody needs a coach, but they need the right fit. Do your due diligence to find the right coach. The coach that you want to work with will change over time throughout your career, depending on what your goals are. So make sure that your goals align with the coaching you're seeking, and vice versa.
I'd like to add that be a little, for those of you who are audiobook fans as opposed to audiobook creators and actors, be a little cognizant of the personalities you're dealing with when you review or don't review something. There's real people and real feelings. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to in the industry, particularly the newer ones, can be damaged by negativity, which isn't fair in a lot of ways, or earned. And I just think given, and I'm not going to go into but given the world we're living in, if there's a place to be decent, that might be a place to start. And for the actors among us, I want you to understand that those reviews are not your bread and butter. It's the next job from the same rights holder or the next job from the publisher. They don't necessarily care about a negative review and a negative comment. Okay? So don't, and also the whole awards, there's all these awards coming up. There's SOVAs and Indies and Audies and the Pratt Awards all coming up. You know what? I think about 4 SOVAs and 3 Audies. I'm nominated for a Grammy right now, and you know what? It doesn't mean a thing.
Amazing. I'm sorry, but that is amazing, Johnny.
It doesn't mean anything. It means it's, you know, I'm either going to get another job or I'm not. Awards are nice and they look great on shelves. And that's about it. You know, for you guys, your success is based on continued work in the industry. That's it. That's it. So don't worry about the rest. You know, if you're good, you're good, you're good. Don't worry about it. And if Mary Ann in Schenectady says that's the worst voice I ever heard, then she doesn't have to buy your book anymore. You know, don't worry about that. Who cares? Not everybody likes Sean Pratt. Hard to believe. That happens. Everybody does like me, so that's not a thing.
Actually, all the comments, this is why they love you guys so much. We all love you guys so much because all the comments are, you're making me cry, you're idealist, everyone loves you guys. And Sean, actually, that's the reason I'm still a narrator, because you said this gig is, how long can you hold on? You said that in the very beginning.
Ripped that mic out of our cold, dead hands.
But seriously, Anna will vouch for the fact that there were a couple of days I had to be reminded, and Sean's words, how long can you hold on? That's the trick. You guys,
because everybody else will let go. That's it. It's, you know, success is hanging on after everybody else lets go. You know, and because the fact you held on meant you kept after it, you kept working it, and you had determination. The people, you know, everybody can reach a breaking point with something when they say, okay, I've had enough. But if you keep hanging on, eventually something's going to break. It'll break your way, you know. But that's a very tough call to make. Sometimes you have to dig really deep in yourself to maintain that focus and that positivity.
Well, what cut it for me was the fact that I figured out there's nothing else I can do at this point. I'm definitely unemployable. I can't have another boss. This is it. But you guys, but all joking aside, you both do. You both bring yourselves, and it's actually quite amazing that you both bring yourselves to each one of us every single time you talk, every single time you have a class or go on one of these things or coach somebody. You haven't become jaded. You haven't become assholes. You bring yourselves. But it would be easy. It would be easy at this point, really. You know what I mean? But you don't. Well, somebody does say lovable assholes, but
that's Stacy. Yeah, figures. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why you're the most beloved narrators there are. Can you tell that I just did a religious book? I keep using the word beloved.
Yeah.
Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 13.
That's right. Well, thanks, my beloveds. It's time to go walk the dogs and have dinner.
Thanks, guys. It's been fabulous. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for your time, Johnny and Sean. You are legends.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, guys.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
It was nice being here.